The cherubs are angelic and mentioned in the Bible several times. However, what are their purposes? In the Bible, we see at least two purposes. Number 1. Guardians. After Adam and Eve were driven out of the Garden of Eden, God placed cherubim and a flaming revolving sword to guard the road to the tree of life. Genesis chapter 3 verse 24. So God drove the man out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, He permanently stationed the cherubim and the sword with a flashing blade which turned round and round in every direction to protect and guard the way, entrance, access to the tree of life. The cherubim are the first of the angelic hierarchy to appear in the Bible, immediately following Adam and Eve's fall from grace. After the great fall of Adam and Eve, we meet the cherubim. It became futile for Adam and Eve to expect righteousness, life, and happiness under the first covenant they made with God, as it was irreparably broken, and no benefit could be taken from it anymore. In this mention, this is the last historical mention of the Garden of Eden in the Bible. God assigned a detachment of cherubim for the specific duty of guarding. Adam was forbidden from approaching the tree of life by force or by stealth, as no one can make a pass against an angel on guard. We are 3 chapters in the Bible, and here we meet the great purpose of these angels. We don't know Adam's reaction to witnessing those glorious cherubim for the first time in human history. Perhaps awe, fright, and wonder are all emotions that come to mind. When we study the Old Testament, for instance, we find that angels are mentioned 108 times. In total, the word angel or angels appears in the books of the law, the writings of Moses 32 times. These cherubims are real beings. They are not mythical figures or opinions. They are spiritual personalities that have a physical impact. That the way to the tree of life was shut up, namely, that way which at first he was put into, the way of spotless innocency. It is not mentioned in the Bible that the cherubim were set to keep Adam and his descendants for eternity from the tree of life. We are grateful that God has prepared a paradise for us, where a tree of life will be present, and we can rejoice in the hope of it. However, the cherubim were appointed to prevent Adam and Eve from accessing the tree of life from the way they used to before they sinned. As much as Adam yearned to return to the Garden of Eden, the cherubim reminded him that he had broken God's law. The high priest of Israel would be allowed into the Holy of Holies once a year to gaze upon the mercy seat. Number 2. Bearers of God's throne chariot. Yahweh was characterized as the one who is enthroned, in Hebrew, sits, on the cherubim, because God made himself known to Moses from between the 2 cherubim mounted at opposite ends of the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 2. And David arose and went with all those who were with him to Baalah Judah, Kiriath-jearim, to bring up from there to Jerusalem the Ark of God, which is called by the name, the very name of the Lord of hosts, who dwells enthroned above the cherubim. David and all Israel went up to Baalah, that is, to Kiriath-jearim, which belongs to Judah, to bring up from there the Ark of God, the Lord who sits enthroned above the cherubim, the Ark which is called by his name. 1 Chronicles chapter 13 verse 6. The place where God sat on the outstretched wings of the cherubim was called the chariot. 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verses 17 through 18. And the forks, the basins and the pitchers of pure gold, and for the golden bowls with the weight for each bowl, and for the silver bowls with the weight for each bowl, and for the altar of incense refined gold by weight, and gold for the model of the chariot of the cherubim that spread their wings and covered the ark of the Lord's covenant. In the vision that Ezekiel had, Yahweh was depicted as being seated on a throne chariot that had 4 wheels and was capable of moving in any direction. The wheels were in tandem with the cherubim. Ezekiel chapter 10 verses 16 through 17. Now when the cherubim moved, the wheels would go beside them, and when the cherubim lifted up their wings to rise from the earth, the wheels would remain beside them. When the cherubim stood still, the wheels would stand still, and when they rose upward, the wheels would rise with them, for the spirit of the living beings was in these wheels. In the book of Ezekiel, the throne chariot with the cherubim was perceived as a storm cloud on which Yahweh rode. Similarly, in Psalm number 104 verse 3 and Isaiah chapter 19 verse 1, Yahweh is said to use clouds as his chariot and ride the swift clouds, controlling the weather much like the storm gods in Canaanite myths. Isaiah chapter 19 verse 1. The mournful, inspired oracle, a burden to be carried, concerning Egypt. Listen carefully. The Lord is riding on a swift cloud and is about to come to Egypt. The idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of the Egyptians will melt within them. In 2 parallel poetic passages, Yahweh is depicted riding on a flying cherub. This does not equate cherubim with clouds. The first is Psalm number 18 verse 10. And he rode upon a cherub, storm, and flew, and he sped on the wings of the wind. The second is 2 Samuel chapter 22 verse 11. He rode on a cherub and flew. He appeared upon the wings of the wind. The cherubim are intimately tied to the throne of God. We see this when God provides details about the ark. They are also closely associated with fire. Not only were the cherubim found in close relationship with the flaming sword when they protected the Garden of Eden, it is reported that the cherubim walked among stones of fire on the holy mountain of God, which may be a reference to God's presence. Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 14 through 16. You were the anointed cherub who covers and protects, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire, sparkling jewels. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created, until unrighteousness and evil were found in you. Through the abundance of your commerce, you were internally filled with lawlessness and violence, and you sinned. Therefore, I have cast you out as a profane and unholy thing from the mountain of God, and I have destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Ezekiel in his vision saw God, the cherubim, and the throne chariot in terms of a thundercloud spewing lightning and having a rainbow. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 4. As I looked, I saw a stormy wind coming out of the north, a great cloud with fire flashing continually from it, and a brightness was around it. And in its core, there was something like glowing amber-colored metal in the midst of the fire. Coals of fire were seen between the cherubim and the wheels of the divine chariot. Ezekiel chapter 10 verse 6. It came about when he commanded the man clothed in linen, saying, Take fire from between the whirling wheels, from between the cherubim. The man entered and stood beside a wheel. Burning coals were taken from there to be spread in judgment over the city of Jerusalem. While the seraphim utilized hot coals to purify the lips of God's servant, the cherubim dispensed them at God's command as an act of judgment. Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 2. And the Lord spoke to the man, seventh angel, clothed in linen, and said, Go between the whirling wheels under the cherubim. Fill your hands with coals of fire from between the cherubim, and scatter them over the city. And he entered as I watched. The cherubim surrounding God's throne, covered with their wings, pictured in the mercy seat of Exodus chapter 25, verse 20, the representation of God's throne. Satan was one of those covering cherubim, not simply one cherub among many. He was the cherub par excellence. The Bible states the existence of spiritual beings created by God, which may assume physical form for particular purposes. These creatures may be classified into two categories. Those in proper relationship with God are generally called angels or messengers, and those in rebellion against God are referred to as demons. While the living creatures of Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 5 through 28 are to be equated with the cherubim of Ezekiel chapter 10. On the other hand, the living creatures in Revelation chapter 4, verses 6 through 9 resemble cherubim in that they have facial features of the same animals. It is important to note that each living creature in Revelation has only one face, which is different from the two and four-faced cherubim in Ezekiel. The wheels associated with the cherubim of Ezekiel's vision had eyes like the living creatures of Revelation, but not the cherubim themselves. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 18. Regarding their rims, they were so high that they were awesome and dreadful, and the rims of all four of them were full of eyes all around. The living creatures of Revelation had 6 wings, which is true of the seraphim, but not like the cherubim who have 2 or 4 wings. Revelation chapter 4, verse 8. And the 4 living creatures, each one of them having 6 wings, are full of eyes all over and within, underneath their wings. And day and night they never stop saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God, the Almighty, the Omnipotent, the ruler of all, who was and who is to come, the unchanging eternal God. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 24. One wing of the cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing was also 5 cubits long. It was 10 cubits from the tip of one wing to the tip of the other. Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 21. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings, and beneath their wings there was the form of human hands. The exact number of cherubim created by God is not known. However, 4 of them are mentioned in the books of Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 5, Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 9, and Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 12. These creatures were commonly used in the decorations of the Tabernacle and Solomon's Temple. The plural form of cherub suggests that there could have been multiple cherubim created by God, which is further supported by their frequent use in Israel's religious structures. Appearance. According to the Bible, cherubim appeared as human-like beings, but not like the winged infants depicted in later art. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 5. Within it, there were figures resembling 4 living beings, and this was their appearance. They had human form. Each had 2 faces, those of a man and a lion, or 4 faces on the right, a lion's. On the left, an ox's, replaced by a cherub's face in Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 14, an eagle's, and a man's. Ezekiel chapter 10 verse 14. And each one had 4 faces. The first face was the face of the cherub, the second the face of a man, the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. Each cherub had at least 2 wings, while others had 4. In both cases, 2 wings were used for flying. The 4-winged cherubim used the second pair to cover their bodies. They also had human hands under their wings. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 8. Under their wings on their 4 sides they had human hands. As for the faces and wings of the 4 of them, the cherubim's legs were straight and not capable of bending, while their feet resembled the sole of a calf's foot. To better understand the cherubim's appearance, scholars have studied the culture of the ancient Near East for additional information. While some have suggested that the cherubim are similar to the Assyro-Babylonian colossi, Egyptian griffins, and other representations, it's important to note that none of these proposed identifications accurately depict the cherubim as they are described in the Bible. Old Testament decorative uses. Cherubim had significant symbolic meaning in Israel's religious architecture. They were incorporated into the design of the Ark of the Covenant and the Tabernacle at God's creation. Cherubim were also used to decorate Solomon's temple, and Ezekiel's vision of the millennial temple exhibited them as well. First, Ark of the Covenant. On the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant were placed 2 cherubim facing one another. The cherubim were made of hammered gold and formed a single piece with the mercy seat, with their wings spread above and overshadowing it. Second, they are used in the tabernacle. Cherubim were embroidered on 10 curtains of white fine twined linen and material of blue, purple, and scarlet. These curtains were 28 cubits by 4 cubits each, and when coupled together, they formed either the outside wall or the undermost covering of the tabernacle tent. A veil made of the same materials was hung between the most holy place and the holy place. Cherubim were also embroidered on this veil. Third, they are used in Solomon's temple. In the inner sanctuary of Solomon's temple were placed 2 olive wood cherubim overlaid with gold. 2 Chronicles chapter 5 verses 7 through 9. Then the priests brought the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord to its place, to the inner sanctuary of the house, into the Holy of Holies, under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread out their wings over the place of the ark, making a covering above the ark and its carrying poles. The poles were so long that the ends of the poles of the ark were visible from the front of the Holy of Holies, inner sanctuary, but were not visible from the outside. They are there to this day. 2 Chronicles chapter 3 verses 10 through 14. And in the Holy of Holies he made 2 sculptured cherubim and overlaid them with gold. The wingspan of the cherubim was 20 cubits. One wing of one cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and its other wing of 5 cubits touched the other cherub's wing. The wing of the other cherub of 5 cubits touched the wall of the house, and its other wing of 5 cubits touched the wing of the first cherub. The wings of these cherubim extended 20 cubits. The cherubim stood on their feet, their faces toward the holy place, the main room. He made the veil between the holy place and the Holy of Holies of blue, purple, and crimson colors, and fine linen, and embroidered cherubim on it. Fourth, Ezekiel's temple. In the temple foreseen by Ezekiel, cherubim were to be part of the decorative scheme. Carvings of cherubim and palm trees adorned all the walls inside the inner room, the nave, and the entire temple. These cherubim had two faces, one of a man and the other of a young lion, facing in opposite directions. The design of the carvings was such that cherubim and palm trees alternated with each other. This means that on each side of every cherub there was a palm tree, and vice versa.